Good morning, Mayor Johnson. Welcome to Choose Views.
Hey, good morning, Brother Chu. Man, thanks for having me.
Good to be with you. I hope you heard the opening. I know you read it, so you don't need to hear it over and over again, but I wanted to play that for our listeners here and all over the country to let them know, in my observation, that of Richard Choose, that's how you get it done. That's how you let people know that you're here for the fight. So I applaud you in that way, and I really feel like you nailed it. When I saw that, I didn't watch the entire hearing, but when I saw that part, I thought Mayor Johnson was ready. So kudos to you for being ready and going in and speaking. You and Mayor Wu, boy, I tell you, I just have to say it. You guys were ready to take it on. So talk about that for our listeners and folks all over the country that would like to hear from you what that experience was like.
Well, thank you for that. And yeah, the Michelle Wu, the mayor of Boston, is just an incredible leader. Has her roots right here in the Chicagoland area. I've worked with Mayor Johnston and Mayor Adams, for that matter, as we responded to what essentially was an attack against our sensibilities. When the governor of Texas decided to target blue cities with sending buses around America, it was essentially an attack against our sensibilities. And, what the goal was to get us to surrender our humanity, and we didn't do that. The governor of Texas spent roughly $221 million, roughly. It's about 1% of the overall budget of the state of Texas. Instead of coordinating and working with us, the Republican Party refused to work with the Biden-Harris administration around comprehensive immigration reform. And so our values are pretty straightforward. The story of Chicago is the story of America, established by a Black Haitian immigrant and a Potawatomi woman, and set up a trade post at the bank of what would become the Chicago River, understanding that Chicago will be the global capital of the world one day. And we truly are. Immigrants from around the globe have come to the city of Chicago to make up our vibrant city. Italians, Irish, Polish, Mexican, Jewish, of course, descendants of slaves came up during the Great Migration. My father was a part of the Second Migration and, wanted a better life, fleeing from oppression and Jim Crow laws of the South, much like we have people around the globe who, are fleeing their nations because of either environmental issues or U.S. sanctions to some extent, foreign policy that has caused disruption in those respective states. So Chicago has always been, a place where, again, immigrants and descendants of slaves have seen as a place of refuge. And that's the story of Chicago, of working people from around the world that make us the greatest freaking city in the world.
That's right. And listen, I've said this to you before. I'll say it again. Imperfection allows us to work, have a goal to shoot for, to get better. And that's one of the things that you and Mayor Wu are unyielding about. And I love what she said about, and I'm paraphrasing, but you were there. Stop coming after us about this some of these things over here that are distractions, when you guys need to pass some laws and some legislation and protect the things that are part of our fabric. Let's protect Medicare and Medicaid, Social Security, and other systems that allow our country to stay strong. Stop this garbage. We aren't perfect. Help us with this. Let's move forward. And that's a message that I think a lot of people just aren't getting. That's what Republicans are trying to do right now.
Well, she's absolutely right. And, we've been very clear, Mayor Wu and I've expressed this in multiple settings, that the current administration and their approach towards governance is not legit, right? It's the opposite. They're grandstanding. In fact, we've challenged this administration. Instead of defunding the Department of Public Education, they should be increasing our funding to ensure that our special education students have all the resources that they need. Our bilingual students have the support that they need. Of course, our educators having the supports that they need. Public education is something that is very dear to my heart, having benefited from public education, having taught in our public schools in Chicago, sending my children to the public schools there in Chicago. The fact that this administration is clear about defunding HUD, the amount of homes that we have built in Chicago just in the first 20 months and the 10,000 or so that are on line to be built over the next couple of years. It's just the ones that we put online last year, about 9,600 of them that are being moved, towards openness. His attack against the environment. We reestablished the Department of the Environment here in Chicago. I could go on and on between the environmental justice, the Department of Justice, education system, between HUD. HUD was the place where we worked hard with our federal delegation to secure $426 million for families who experienced the flooding back in 2023. So all of these efforts that we have put forth in the city of Chicago to create safer communities, this administration, the Trump administration, is working hard to undermine those efforts.
And to that point, Mayor Johnson, and thank you for that, rather than the Trump administration looking at the government buying crypto and creating a crypto account, how about spending that money where it should be spent, which is protecting the people who need those services and that largesse the most: Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, education, and some of our other pillars that have allowed this country to take care of the least among us so that they can move into the middle class and on and on and on. So I appreciate you kind of breaking that down. Let me move to another quick topic because I know that limited time with your busy schedule. You were able to narrowly get past the borrowing bond, big number, and I know that you took some heat leading up to that, but you were able to get it across the finish line and bring together the votes that were needed. That's a box that you can check. But I think a lot of people want to know, as best that you can in this limited amount of time, Mayor Johnson, talk about what it will benefit, who it will benefit, and ultimately what people want to know is how much is it really going to cost the city?
Yeah, thank you for that question. So yes, we passed an investment a couple of weeks ago, roughly a little bit over $800 million to respond to the infrastructure needs that we have in Chicago. Again, because of the threat from the federal government of defunding the valuable, resources that we need here in Chicago to continue to move in the right direction, we cannot rely upon the federal government. And our infrastructure needs are severe. I was participating in a live town hall about a month ago, and a woman, came to the microphone and she said, "Mayor Johnson, you either fix these potholes in these streets or you're going to fix my car."
I remember that.
Right. And, and she wasn't by herself, right? I mean, there are, bridges and viaducts that are crumbling. Our lighting is not sufficient. And again, our streets need to be paved. And so these investments are really about not just ensuring that the people of Chicago have, all of the necessary amenities to be safe, but it's also about making sure that we create jobs as well. So the $800 million of investment into our communities creates jobs, which the return on those investments are significant. Look, I'm just going to be very direct with you and your audience. Look, the city of Chicago has floated bonds for decades. This is actually very standard for a corporation of our size. $16 billion budget, over a $16 billion budget. We attract trillions of dollars from around the globe. There have been so many bonds like this have been floated over the years. The reason why I get so much attention around these investments, there's a concerted effort to undermine the investments that I'm making because there are individuals that are more concerned about trying to embarrass me than actually work with me. It's going to be flat out. Look, I mean, in terms of the cost of these investments, every generation benefits from these investments, and paying down on these investments is just a matter of the function of government, quite frankly. And just like there are infrastructural benefits that we have right now that a generation ago invested in, that we're paying for it because we're utilizing it. Right? This is not some major, massive deficit spending. This is not selling away a public asset for good over to privatizers, and we're never going to benefit from it. Do you understand what I mean? I know you're laughing. You and I get it. It's just so asinine.
I'm laughing for a couple of reasons. Our board engineer, Henry, is just laughing his tail off because he understands this is a 20-something dude. He understands that his life right now is growing and getting better because of investments that previous leadership that have their head screwed on straight did so that we would have a better way. So he gets the fact that that's a part of what we have to do as an operator. And I like the way you put this, Mayor Johnson. A corporation the size of Chicago, people forget sometimes that it is a business. It's politics, but it's also a business. And mistakes have been made, and you are going to make yours, but it's all about acknowledging that and then saying, how do we clean these up and move forward? And I hear you when you say people just, they don't want to work with you and other leaders. They want to continue to throw the proverbial doo-doo at you rather than, hey, Mayor Johnson, we got to figure this out. And sometimes you have to take the stand, and I appreciate you being transparent about how you feel about it. I'm laughing. I wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing with you.
No, I know you won't. I'll just add one more dynamic to that. The structural deficit that we have right now in the city of Chicago is primarily based on the fact that previous administrations did not pay into our retirement system.
Yep.
That's the issue. In fact, for the last two budgets, not only have I paid into the retirement for city workers, our people, that I've actually added payments on top of it so that we can no longer be in a situation where we're just treading water, right? So the structural damage that has been done to the city is primarily based on the fact that 2-3 administrations ago took the dedicated revenue stream that was securing our retirees and then decided to take that revenue stream and line the pockets of developers and the ultra-rich. Now, we have restored that dedicated stream, and now I'm paying the debt from 3-4 administrations ago, and then now you're going to have individuals who had a chance to do right financially when they were when 30 years ago, and they didn't make the right decision then, and then now somehow I'm supposed to trust their evaluation. I'm going to just say it like this. If individuals prove that they're incapable of making responsible decisions when they had the choice in front of them, why would I trust them now? In fact, the reason why the working people of this city voted for me, because they know I'm going to do right by retirees, the most pro-worker city in America, and, of course, we continue to grow our economy by investing in our infrastructure. That's actually how you build safe communities. There's no coincidence that violent crime is down in Chicago as our investments in our infrastructure, our investment in mental health, our investments in education, our investments in youth and workforce development, our investment in our community colleges, all those investments are going up. Violent crime is going down. I'm responding to the structural damage that I inherited. Now all of a sudden people have questions. Well, you should have asked those questions 30 years ago, and now that we're in charge and setting this city on the right trajectory, work with us to actually build the type of economy that's inclusive versus trying to come up with these false narratives that, quite frankly, the people of Chicago, they're seeing right through it.
People are tired of it, and this is the thing that passed through my mind, Mayor Johnson, when you were making your last points. Get involved and be helpful. Stop being just obstructionist to be be an obstructionist because you want political power. And to that end, I'm a strong believer in this. Leaders are going to make mistakes. The leaders that are the better leaders go, that wasn't a good thing to do, or it was the wrong way to go. Let's fix that. Let's course correct and go forward. And if there's something that I will say about the better leaders, and I'll include you in this short time you've been mayor, is that you've found the ability to say, maybe not. Let's try to move over here, or let's try again to get it a little bit better. I'm going to pivot a little bit because we're wrapping up. And and kind of end on an optimistic note. I was going to throw something at you, not throw something at you, but talk about that crazy address that took place on Tuesday night. But we won't talk about that today. We'll end on a positive note. Let's end on an optimistic note. Next 30 days before we have you back on in April, there's some things that are happening. Obviously, time is changing on Sunday. St. Patrick's Day is taking place. Spring is breaking. Baseball. And all those things are happening. What does that mean to you as a leader of the third largest city in America?
Well, first of all, I'm a baseball fan, so I'm always looking forward to the spring. And as the weather changes, this is just, the way the city of Chicago begins to open up again and unthaw. I celebrate my birthday in March, so there's a lot of exciting things that I look forward to in the city, just on a personal note, from baseball to birthdays to celebrations. But something that I really want to celebrate. We implemented efforts to build more affordable homes, and including downtown as a part of that effort. And this month, we're going to break ground with the Campari Group that is a part of the Reimagine LaSalle Street. Remember, there was a lot of conversation around how do we reimagine our downtown areas, the Loop, especially with, businesses moving towards remote and, the way things changed after COVID. Well, we have identified a number of buildings that have been repurposed for housing and including affordable homes. And so we're breaking ground on one of those first projects, and I'm very happy that this group, these developers and investors, are investing their time and resources in Chicago to build more units and to build more affordable housing units. I'm looking forward to that. We're still having more conversations about green social housing, a new approach that hasn't been tried in many different places of how we create sustainable rent so that for the next 30 years, families can afford to live in the city of Chicago without the fear of gentrification. So there are still conversations that we're having around building green social housing. The other thing that I'm looking forward to, and another positive note, we have an initiative that I've put forth called the Missing Middle, where we're working with developers to purchase or buy up large swaths of vacancy in the city of Chicago.
Yes.
And instead of one plot here, one plot there, we're getting them to get multiple plots. We're giving them, of course, incentives to be able to develop on these plots. And of the 6 developers that are participating in this initial $30 million investment, 5 of these developers are Black, 2, I believe, are women-led entities. So this is just within the next 30 days. And really, I'm grateful that we're in a position where, again, the city of Chicago is moving in the right direction, and we're safer. I just think it's important that your listeners know that just within these first 2.5 months of the new year, violent crime is down by over 20%. And whether it's robberies, shooting victims, homicides, we have a long way to go. And to your point, Drew, I'll be the first to admit that we have not done everything or executed everything perfectly. I'm not perfect, but what I can say is this, is that I'm committed to building a more inclusive economy for every single person in this city, to make sure that working people know that they have a champion, that their brothers on the 5th floor thinking about them every single day. What I want for my family, I want for every single family in this city. And so, again, over the next 30 days, as we look to put forth green social housing, the Campari Group breaking ground, providing affordable homes and units in the downtown area. And then, of course, as we continue to deal with the vacancy in this city, where developers are coming together, working with city property, we're making the investments, incentivizing their cooperation, and putting more units on the line. The last thing that I'll say is, if there's ever one thing that people should be very clear about, I want to repopulate the city of Chicago with working people. We're at about 2.8 million people. Believe it or not, we can get 400,000 more people conservatively in the city of Chicago. I know it doesn't feel like that when we're trying to head to work, but there's room for more people. And the way we drive prices for homes down is by building more units. The average price of a home in New York is $1.1 million. Average price of a home in Los Angeles is about $800,000. Right now in the city of Chicago, average price of a home is about $275,000. And so this is the best place to raise a family. And as a big city, we're still relatively affordable, and I'm working hard to drive the cost of living down in the city of Chicago so more working people can experience the vibrancy and as what I call the soul of Chicago.
Mayor Johnson, I am always thankful to have you on our show, and I'm happy that we have been able to put this together and have you with us on a monthly basis. And I just wish you continued success and appreciate your leadership when you went to Washington on Wednesday, and keep on fighting the fight because we're going to be fighting it with you. So have a great rest of the day. Have a great weekend, and we'll talk again in 30 days.
All right. Very good. Thank you all.
All right. Be well.
Bye-bye.
Bye now.